Welcome to PatientX Pulse, where we're making the heartbeat of healthcare marketing stronger, one episode at a time. Join us on this journey as we pulse through the veins of healthcare marketing, delivering insights, strategies, and results that matter for patient experience. Hi, and welcome to the PatientX Pulse podcast. I'm Kimberly, and I am your host today as we dive into an exciting topic of cultural health and how it impacts patient experience. At PatientX Agency, we developed 6 pillars of healthcare marketing that we believe most significantly impact the patient experience. Number 4 on that list is cultural health. So today we've invited a very special guest, Dr. Nathan Unruh, to talk about this important topic with us today. So Nathan, I know you started your career as a chiropractor. Became very successful, you opened multiple locations, and eventually you thought, I want to share everything I've learned, good and bad, with other chiropractors, other healthcare professionals who are trying to grow their business. Now, long story short, 5-4, you co-found 5-4, which is aimed at developing a culture of patient experience, customer experience for all businesses. And I would really love to just kick off this conversation today to know what inspired you, what made you take that transition from healthcare, working with patients day in and day out, to transition to helping administrators and business owners make a real impact on customer and patient experience.
Yeah, great topic, Kimberly. And first of all, thanks for having me.
Yes.
You know, as I looked at my years of running a chiropractic businesses, 25 years, I fell in love with just the building aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Fell in love with the aspect of how do we really differentiate ourselves on a great experience versus just the commodity or the services that we provided.
Right.
And there was a point in time during my career where I was just frustrated, which I think a lot of business owners get at some point in time, where I was reading all the books, I was getting all the right training. I thought I was a great doctor, but something was missing. And that's when I started to get around the right people, read the right books, and to start to develop a business really based on how do we have a foundation of a great culture? Because at the end of the day, you can't have a great patient experience if you don't have a great team experience.
Right.
Oftentimes I would look at that from the other way around. And we would sit there and go, we give the best patient care, we give the best patient care. Well, do we? And how are we measuring that? And what are the elements that really make up great patient care? Right. And so that's when we started doing lots of focus groups with patients, started to look at really what are the missing elements or the right elements to have a great culture. And you asked me, why do I do this? Why did I make that transition? I love building things. I love building businesses. I love when the businesses, when they do it right, you can feel the difference amongst the team members that work in that business. It's no longer just a job, but it's really a place they get to come and make an impact. And there's no better place than in healthcare that you can have such a huge impact on so many people.
So I would be curious then, if an administrator or a doctor or a group of physicians is like, hey, we need help, and you start saying culture, what would you say to them about why culture matters so much with the patient experience?
Yeah, so great question, because it's tough with doctors.
Yes, it is.
Me being one of them. I thought that clinical competencies alone,
that should be it,
That should be it. If I know how to take care of a patient, this is their ailment, this is what I do, the rest of it's going to take care of itself. Well, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. The foundation of a great business starts with culture. Now, what is culture? And then you ask the question, people say, well, this culture, does it kind of airy-fairy? Is it, Gene Fridays and, warm cookies on Thursdays and maybe it's beer Tuesdays?
Yeah, lunches every day.
Right.
Yes,
that might be components of a culture, but really defining what a great culture is. And I believe that culture is the minimum behavior you're willing to tolerate. The minimum behavior you're willing to tolerate. So how are we going to collectively behave? Those would be our values. Values are behaviors. And how are we going to manage and lead according to those values? And then as you move up, it goes, well, if we behave that way, why do we want to behave that way? Well, ultimately, there's got to be a clear vision.
Right.
Why do we get up out of bed every single day? And how do we instill that vision? The vision, like Simon Sinek has said it best, start with why. Now, most vision statements are these big, long, drawn-out statements that nobody remembers, nobody knows.
Right.
It happened in a boardroom somewhere,
Yep.
and then it got put on a poster or on a website, and then it goes into the top drawer.
Right.
Vision needs to be something simple, clearly, and idealistic. It's the number one component of a great culture. It's the purpose. Then we have to couple that with a clear mission.
Right.
The mission is, okay, if we got this big idealistic vision, what is now our mission? How are we going to accomplish it? Again, very simple. You know if it's a good vision if everybody on the team knows it.
Right.
It's the lens by which we teach a team to operate. We don't want to teach people what to think. We want to teach them how to think. And how to think is through the lens of a vision, a mission, and the behaviors or the values of the organization. So some examples, some of my favorites.
Yes.
Steve Jobs. We all know who Steve Jobs is.
Yep.
He had a very clear vision, put a dent in the universe. Now, what I want you to hear in that, there was nothing about computers,
Right.
iPhones, or any of that. They had a vision to truly make an impact in the world. And how they did it now, and the commodities or the service they use, were the computers, were the iPhones, were those other components.
Made a dent.
Made a dent.
Still making a dent.
Still making a dent. Totally. So when you look at that from a healthcare perspective, too many times we're looking at spreadsheets, we're looking at patient ailments, we're looking at reimbursement issues and all the insurance components, the regulators, the compliance. There's a lot to think about.
Yes.
Well, how do you get through all that stuff?
Yes.
Well, we believe very firmly, culture, a clear vision
Okay.
with a clear mission and values. Now, once those get established, now you have to protect them. And we use something called a code of honor to protect them. That code of honor is something to, number one, affirm and recognize of a job well done. We find a lot of organizations, one of the biggest breakdowns is nobody communicates. Nobody told me that. Nobody tells me a job well done. I don't even know what I'm doing, if it even makes an impact.
Right.
And we know this in a healthcare environment, it's way more than just the doctor.
Yes.
The doctor's interaction is usually minimal compared to everything else that has to happen, no matter what kind of doctor it is. And if you look at the healthcare facilities that are doing it the best, they're taking a step back and looking at, all right, what is our culture? How are we taking care of our people? Because if we take care of our people, they're going to take care of our people,
Yes.
right? The patients,
Yes.
the reasons why we're there in the first place. A good example that will encourage a lot of healthcare facilities with a lot of business owners, period, is every time somebody gets paid, we encourage you to write a handwritten note, a couple of handwritten notes. Not to me as the person that's employing you, not to the administrator, but to the very people we serve. Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this opportunity to serve.
Right.
It's a simple gesture. But that's a mindset shift, right? It's a mindset shift that we don't have to come to work. We get to come to work.
Right.
We choose to come to work. And that work is dignity, because what better work is there than helping 6 people get well?
Right. Right. So what I hear you saying is leadership is absolutely one of the most important elements in creating and sustaining a healthy culture. So what would be some practical advice that you would give to administrators who are like, okay, where do I start? My people are just, I don't have time for this. I'm taking care of patients. Patient care rules. That rules, that's number one in their minds. How do you help that leadership prepare their teams for the mission, for the vision, and in a practical way, keep engaging it every day? What are some examples of what that could look like?
Yeah, it's a big question.
I know it is.
That's what we do all day, trying to help organizations put those in place.
Let's pick one or two good examples.
Okay. So it's a great question, though. First off, it's a mindset. First of all, okay, culture is a mindset. So
you can't change culture if the mindset of the leaders and everyone in that culture doesn't change.
100%. So mindset number one, organizations don't grow, people grow. Right. So do we have a training and development program? Do we have expectations to develop our people?
Right.
You talk about leadership. Well, you don't need a title to be a leader.
Right.
There's not one organization that not every single person is a leader. They have to lead themselves. They have to lead within their home. They have to lead within their circle of influence within their job. Right. So empowering people to be leaders. So a practical thing to do, number one, is do you have a training and development program that's not just training the competencies of the job?
Right.
Whether there be a nurse, whether it be the doctor, whether it be whatever it is, PA, I mean, whatever position it is as a technician, yes, the competency is important. But how about culture training? How about customer experience or patient experience training?
Right.
If you don't have a development program to have 4 key components. Now, here's the biggest practical thing I can give you.
Okay.
4 key components. Number one, content. Get the knowledge from the people that have it to the people that need it.
Right.
Well, what kind of knowledge? Knowledge on the competencies.
Yep.
You have to be a master of what you do, whatever you do in healthcare. Number 2, you have culture. What are the pieces of culture? How are we training it? How are we teaching it? How do we make decisions based upon it?
Okay.
And then patient experience. What are the components of a great patient experience? I mean, the table stakes, if you go see an eye doctor, I expect to see better. If I go to see a dentist, I expect to have no cavities.
Right.
If I go to a chiropractor, I expect to have no pain in my back. So whatever, that's table stakes. But what are the other components of the patient experience that need to be taught? Yes. So when you have that first component, that's content. Now you got to do it with repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill, like Tony Robbins says. So if that development system doesn't have repetition, and you think your only time that you're doing training and development is when you go to a conference, or you have once in a while a team meeting where it is a talk at versus a talk with.
Right.
So you have to have a system that has repetition.
Okay.
We recommend there's 30 minutes of training every single week. Okay.
30 minutes a week.
30 minutes a week. That means with very focused meetings. That means with a learning management system in organizations. So you can be very intentional about the training that you're giving every single quarter. So the third component, practice and role play. Okay. What kinds of things do you need to practice and role play in healthcare? Well, how about the presentation of a patient's benefits? In the world of Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all the different payers, all the different, well, how do I deliver a great relating of financial findings?
Yes.
How do I make sure that I'm relating to the patient exactly what they can expect? Right? So how do we practice and role play those things? All the way down, one of the worst in healthcare facilities is the phone.
Yes. Yes.
How to train on how to answer the phone. What's the purpose of the phone call? Get the patient scheduled. Yep. Well, where do we schedule them? How much time do we? So, and every organization is a little different, but that's practice and role play. Then the fourth component is accountability. If I can't track, measure, and monitor it, then it's a lousy system.
Okay.
So you go back. Learning needs to be a key element, in my opinion, to a great culture.
Yes.
Because if people aren't growing, the organization can't grow.
Right. Okay. So practical day-to-day measurement, what would that look like? Some might say, okay, it's going to take extra time on our managers. What might it look like in a healthcare facility for that accountability?
30 minutes a week is what I believe. So if
training 30 minutes
you're
a
doing
week.
30 minutes a week in some type of training activity, like the programs we put together, we always incorporate 30 minutes. Here's the meeting structure. Here would be your training that you'd want to do. Build the curriculum. Have a testing mechanism that you can monitor it. So that's what we put together with organizations to help them know, you have these components of it.
Yep. And through that testing, that's the accountability piece of knowing that they completed, knowing they made it through the training and testing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kimberly, you think everybody likes to do it? No. The same way I don't like to have to go get on my treadmill or my Peloton bike or go whatever it may be.
Yep.
But if you want a better result, you got to change your approach.
Yes.
If you don't like your current result, change your approach. So I also would go back to, well, why would we do this?
Right.
Well, start measuring, and that's what I love about PatientX.
Mm-hmm.
The PatientX score is a score that you can measure to know how you are doing in the different components of those pillars that you spoke of.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So if you're not measuring the experience, start measuring it.
Right.
So what's the patient experience look like? Net promoter score is one of my favorite KPIs.
Yes.
How about your employee net promoter score? You know, in a facility. Because if that is not good, don't expect your net promoter score to be good with your patients.
Right.
So again, data should then also lead you, why do you want to do this?
Right. Okay, so that kind of leads me into my next question of someone comes to you, they're sold, like, I want to move forward. I know we need your help. How do you measure the health of the culture? How do you accurately figure out where that culture is and what steps should be taken from there?
Yeah, great question. So there's 3 different ways we do like to measure. I just mentioned one of them, the employee net promoter score.
Okay.
So the employee net promoter score is something that was created by Frank Reitfeld with Bain and Company. It's used by all the Fortune 100 companies right now. And it measures on a scale of positive 100 to negative 100.
Okay.
Anything 0 and above is good. So there is an algorithm. Many organizations that think they use the Net Promoter Score usually aren't using the algorithm correctly.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one way to measure it.
Okay.
Okay. And we want to get organizations to a 70. Because a 70 represents world class. Mm-hmm. Why is world class important? If you're delivering a world class team experience, it's going to extend into a world class patient experience. And then we say, your organization has no choice but to grow. Versus, I just need more new patients. I just need more new patients. Well, how about we take care of the patients that we have?
Right.
And when we do, that creates that word of mouth, that creates that buzz, and you never have a hard time developing new patients when you get this component right. The other KPI, cultural index. Okay. Our cultural index is a KPI that we developed that allows organizations to develop or to measure the knowledge of the vision, mission, values, some of the key elements we already talked about,
right.
The behavior of the team, an outsider's view of that behavior, also internally, and then the perception. So that's KPI. We like to have at a 90. So when organizations are at a 90, they got their rows or their oars in the water rowing all in the same direction.
Okay. So this is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Mm-hmm. Have you run into this? I know a lot of the facilities that we work with, some are small, some medium, some very large. Mm-hmm. Their team will say, I don't even check my email. So what advice would you give to administration and managers in trying to get your team to take these assessments when they're not checking their email, when they're not necessarily in it every day like a typical business might be? Because they're busy with the patients. How do you get them in? How do you get those assessments taken and keep?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bigger fundamental problem there than that, is that we can't get our team to do certain things. We can't get our team to train. We can't get them to take an assessment. We can't get them. Well, is that the team's problem?
Or is that a cultural issue?
That's a cultural and a leadership problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we don't have to browbeat people, but we got to get them to understand the why. Right?
Yes.
Trying to push people to do something is exhausting. Pull people towards why we're headed there. Email, unfortunately, has become one of the main ways that people communicate.
Right.
Well, we would contend email's not for communication, it's for clarification.
Correct.
Now, they understand that this information is important, and is the information we are trying to gather from them to make their lives better.
Right.
That's pulling them towards a why.
Right.
A lot of times, the reason people don't respond, here's the answer we get from employees. They're not going to do anything with the information anyway.
Right.
You ask and nothing changes.
Again, points to more cultural
issues. You ask, we wanted to get paid more, we want better benefits, we want more time off. All the many things that people will put in their assessments, right? Well, establish how people win. Establish when they come in, what can they get paid? What's the ceiling? What's the incentive programs? And making sure everybody understands the why.
Perfect. So I would like our audience to hear maybe some practical examples. Maybe one or two healthcare-like facilities that you've worked with, and maybe give an example of this was a problem that they had, this is a solution that we provided them, and the success that they experienced.
Yeah, well, let's keep it in the world of what you guys do in marketing. Okay. It's a practical example of, I want to go spend more money on marketing.
Okay.
I want more new patients. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Let's make an investment in our team to be able to wow patients.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? Well, here's practical. Some organizations will say you can spend up to $100 a month, any team member, at any given time, to go wow a patient. Now, you don't have to spend $100 at all. You can spend $15. You don't even have to spend money. We say spend treasure and time. Something to wow a patient.
Okay.
That might be their favorite drink when they show up for their visit. Mm-hmm. That might be an example of a member of my team. Guy comes in one day, his name was Darwin. He says, my back's killing me. It's the middle of a snowstorm. I'm going to have to go and shovel my driveway and my sidewalk. Well, a team member hears that over his lunch hour, goes to this gentleman's house and shovels his driveway and his sidewalk. Now, I didn't have to ask that team member to do that, but he was empowered to do that.
Right.
Now, who do you think that is the best for?
Oh, goodness. I think the organization who allowed the freedom for him to do that, but the patient, in the end, is the one who benefited.
Totally.
And was able to come in and be served.
You know who another big person was? That employee.
Yeah, they felt great.
That ability to be in a job that's just not about do this technical activity. I actually get the opportunity and I'm empowered to serve people at that level.
To make a difference.
Yeah, and is that not great servant leadership? We talk about leadership. Mm-hmm. So those would be practical things. Now, people say, I don't know if my organization's too big. $100 people right now as they're listening to this are trying to do the math.
Right.
Come up with ways to encourage the team to wow the people that they're serving. Okay. So that would be one practical element to help an organization.
Okay.
I think the other practical element is start with a simple EMPS survey of your organization, of your team members.
Okay.
If something was wrong in your business, how soon would you want to know it?
Immediately.
Immediately.
Yes.
Send it out. Ask for feedback. You'll find right away. I hear a lot of people, we've got a great culture. And then they find out, wow, we've got some gaps. Yeah. So now once you have that information, now you can customize a strategic plan that helps to try to start to change it.
Okay, so let's just say a wild number. How many organizations, businesses, healthcare facilities have you worked with now and consulted with on this? Just
wow, yeah.
Throw out a
great question. I would say thousands of doctors, healthcare organizations across the board. At any given time, there's 300-400 people we're working with that are in some type of healthcare, whether that be doctors, whether it be facility or administrators. Okay. So a lot. I mean, I've spent 25 years of my life doing it, so those are a lot of the circles that I still run in.
So you have had a lot of time. You've gained a lot of experience. I would be interested, I think the audience would be as well. What are maybe a couple of the most common concerns or issues or problems that are happening within an organization's culture? What are the most common mistakes that you see being made?
Yeah, I would always say they fall into 3 buckets: time, money, and people.
Okay.
I don't have enough time,
Okay.
right? The team members, I don't have enough time.
Yep.
We don't have enough time to put these initiatives in place. So time's always is it.
Yes.
Okay. Also, but I always have to remind them, remember, time is your number one asset.
Mm-hmm.
It's what in the healthcare facilities is what you're selling.
Yes.
Usually no matter what the service or commodity is, time is the number one you're selling. I go to a doctor because of their knowledge.
Yes.
And they're a thought leader in that area.
And I
right?
need them to fix
I'm buying their time, right?
Yes.
So if it takes them only, 3 seconds to solve that problem, they know what 3 seconds, what that needs to happen.
Okay.
So I'd say it always falls in one of those 3 buckets.
Okay.
That when people come to us, but in the people element, communication is the biggest gap. I don't care how small or how large. Communication is the biggest gap. And the communication shows up all, I don't feel valued. I don't feel affirmed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what my expectations are. I don't know what my next opportunity is. Mm-hmm. So if organizations could really focus on that communication gap, they solve a lot of their cultural gap. And also, you're not going to please everybody. When we start doing work with a lot of organizations, I let them know right off the bat, when you start making a commitment to these changes, your brand now is going to attract the right kinds of people.
Like-minded people.
And you're going to also repel.
Yes.
You have to be prepared for that. Because you have really 3 opportunities when dealing with the team. You can teach them, mm-hmm. you can tolerate them, or you can terminate them. Now, toleration creates mediocrity, and mediocrity sucks.
Yep.
Termination, I hate terminating people. Mm-hmm. And I always have to look at myself in the mirror, rub off the fog and say, Nathan, did you do everything you were supposed to for that team member?
Yes.
And if I did, then termination is usually the answer. But why don't we spend more time on the teach? Mm-hmm. The teach component and putting in the right elements to help that individual succeed.
So that is one of the most common areas that you see is lacking when it comes to organizational culture.
100%.
And your solution is teach. Leadership, get involved.
Mm-hmm. Leadership and development, training.
Yes.
Training's not something we say, and you'll hear me say it all the time. Training's not something we did, it's something we do. Mm-hmm. And we have to fall in love with it. We get to, we choose to, we don't have to. And that's how we get better. Because again, organizations don't grow, people grow. And making a strong dedication to our people makes all the difference in the world.
Well, this is a big topic, and I know we could talk all day. Mm-hmm. But what I would like to do is just narrow it down for the audience. I'm thinking administrators, I'm thinking physicians. Right now, today, what can they do? What practical steps can they take today? Today.
Okay, great question. I would say number 1, go back to assess the team. Okay. Assess the organization.
Okay.
Where are your gaps? So we do a growth potential assessment. Well, we'll assess the gaps in culture, experience, the team, and the current results. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So assess it. Whether you use a company like PatientX or a 5-4,
yes.
Find somebody to say, assess it. Okay? I would say then, start asking the team. Right? And that's part of the assessment process as well.
Right.
And where's the organization going? If you don't have a clear vision, if you don't have a clear mission or values, that's a great place to start, Kimberly.
Yes. Perfect. Practical, doable, and I know there's a lot more that we could say about it. But I think we'll kind of start to narrow down here. So as we close, one thing I want to talk about is what patient experience actually is. I found a perfect quote on Barrel Institute's website, and they define patient experience as the sum of all interactions shaped by an organization's culture that influence patient perceptions across the continuum of care.
Beautiful.
It nailed it. It is the best description of patient experience that I've ever heard. And the 2 things that stand out, number 1, shaped by an organization's culture. Mm-hmm. And I think patient experience, everyone thinks doctor-patient, nurses interacting. This really summarized and hit on how important the culture really is. And culture is more than Friday lunches and going out after work a certain day every week or gifts on birthdays. Culture is a lot more than that. And I think the sooner that organizations start to recognize that and take steps to improve it, they're going to see a huge shift in patient experience. But the second piece of that I always key in on is over the continuum of care, all patient interactions. That really leans to the fact that patient experience is more than what happens inside a doctor's office or inside a surgery room. Patient experience starts the first time a patient interacts with your brand. That could be on a website, it could be a billboard, it could be a brochure they pick up or a sign they see. It starts long before they ever step foot into your facility. So if you really want to make an impactful difference on patient experience, it comes down to recognizing the patient journey, focusing on all important pieces of that, but especially the organizational culture, because that will affect the messaging, the branding, the look, the feel of not just marketing materials, but your best marketing asset, which is your people. So I really want to emphasize what patient experience is, why it matters. There's a stat that I found, Lumion put out, that 90% of hospitals and providers believe that patient experience is the most significant factor they have in making themselves stand out against their competition. And I would agree with that. And we're in a time where patients have more healthcare options than they've ever had, ever, and they're more aware of those healthcare options. Online reviews, people talk, social media. I mean, what do they say that, people will tell 10 people if they have a bad experience, but people don't always share if they have a good one. So patient experience matters, and culture is a huge influencing piece of that. So Nathan, I just want to give you the final word. If there is a little golden nugget we've missed today, or if there's something important or significant that you think could help our audience, what would it be?
Well, I think what you just said there, I think, if you're listening to this, rewind and listen to what she said of what that, was it the Barrel Institute?
Yes.
The sum of all interactions shaped by an organizations, the sum of all interactions. That's before they ever get to your facility.
Yes.
Like all the things that you said. So what I hear in that, and what I would just press into the listeners today, is be intentional. Be intentional on the patient journey map.
Yes.
At every level of that journey map. Be intentional. It's worth doing the work. So I would just take the information there and says, shaped by the organizational culture. It's hard to look at culture. Why? Because it's hard to put on a spreadsheet.
Yes.
And we like putting things on spreadsheets. We like putting things in our EHR and things like that. It's important that as leaders, we do take this cultural piece serious. It's a big deal if you want to differentiate yourself on great experiences.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I think it's very impactful for our audience. So thank you as well for joining us today for the PatientX Pulse podcast. I hope you'll join us again. If you liked what you learned today, be sure to comment, share it, like us on social media. Check out 5-4. Your website is
54training.com, or you could also find any information at drnathanunruh.com as well.
So check them out as well. If you have questions, you can always reach out to PatientX. So be sure to subscribe, or as my 12-year-old son would say, smash that subscribe button. So thank you again for joining us. Until next time, make it a great day.